Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a Q&A about breastfeeding. With my experience, I decided to ask my family and friends and post on my Instagram story for anyone to ask me questions that they would like to ask a breastfeeding mother. I will be looking down a lot because I have my questions on my iPad. And we have quite a few questions, so I don't want this video to be super long. And since we have a lot of questions, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. For our first question, is your baby exclusively breastfeeding or getting only breast milk? Yes, she is exclusively breastfeeding. I do not supplement with formula. Anytime I pump, I'm literally giving her the breast milk that I pump. No formula for us. Next question, does your baby use a bottle? Well, if you've watched my channel before, you know that I had a very hard time getting my baby to use a bottle. We actually used 3 different bottles, I think, maybe 4. And at 5 months, she is just now starting to take a bottle, but that's iffy. That's not an all the time thing. She does not take a bottle from me. She only takes a bottle from my mother or the babysitter. So, Madison does what she wants to do. So, yes and no. Next question, how long does your baby breastfeed? Well, when she was first born, 15 minutes on one, 15 minutes on the other. As time went on, I ended up only being able to feed on one side during a feeding. So let's say at 2 o'clock, she fed on the left side. Then when she came back at 4:30, she was feeding on the right side. I could never really go to both sides during one feeding. After maybe like a month or 2, my flow is very strong. So she gets full off of one side very quickly, and she can get full within like 10 minutes. But fast forward to about now, she's 5 months, probably around 4 months or so. She began to be very nosy. She gets very distracted easily. So breastfeeding 15 minutes, 10 minutes turned into like a 30-minute thing because she has to look all around the entire time. So she's on and off me multiple times throughout the entire feeding. So maybe what would take, like I said, 15 minutes now takes like 30 minutes, and we still don't necessarily switch sides. Next question, are you pumping in between feedings, and do you have a pump schedule? Do I have a pump schedule? No. Am I pumping in between feedings? Sometimes, not all the time. Like I said, I don't really have a pump schedule. I've been blessed to actually supply a lot of milk, but I don't pump on a schedule. Like if, like I said, she's on one side and the other side is engorged, which engorged means full of milk, and it gets heavy, and it's like it has to release itself to the point where, you know, like it hurts, then I will go ahead and pump. But I don't always pump. If it's not like super full, I'm usually not pumping because I exclusively breastfeed, and a lot of times my child is off and on me kind of like all day. So she'll end up getting to that side before I have to pump it. So only if we go long periods of time without her feeding. Next question. If you pump, what breast pump do you use? I use the handheld Medela, and you literally manually squeeze it. And I use the Mom Cozy, I want to say the S9. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's the S9. Those are the portable breast pumps. Then I use the electric Medela. I can't remember the exact name. I'm just going to put it below on the screen so you guys know the exact one. Next question. What does it feel like, and does it hurt? well, it hurt at the beginning. It did hurt at the beginning, especially like right after I had her and she latched on. It's like that initial like tug was like, ooh, like I never felt that before. So yes, at the beginning it did hurt, and getting used to her being on me 24/7 or just her latching on because she didn't know how, her being so eager to be latched on did kind of hurt a little bit. What does it feel like as far as now? The letdown is when all your milk is coming down to your nipple. That does hurt. It's kind of like a stinging feeling, like it kind of stings a little bit, and it's like a sharp like electric bolt through your breast. So that does hurt. But her eating in general does not hurt. It just feels like something is rushing out of your nipple, like water or something like that, like inside of your body. That's what it feels like. Are your boobs heavy? Only when they're engorged. That means full of milk and ready to release. Are your nipples the same afterwards? To me, my nipples look the same. The only thing that's different is my areolas are darker than they were. On average, how much time do you spend breastfeeding? Like I said, right now, I'm exclusively breastfeeding. So if I'm home, she's on me off and on, off and on. A session in itself could last 30 minutes to 45 minutes, depending on how distracted she is at the time. Do your breasts leak sometimes? And what do you do when they leak? My breasts do leak if they are super engorged and ready to release. If she's not latched on, they will leak. If I'm getting ready to get in the shower and I take off my bra and they're just out, there will be droplets on the floor. Or I've had to like hold them to stop them from leaking. They leak in the shower. If my child is nearby and she's whining or crying, they will leak. And sometimes I will have that letdown sensation where that stinging electric bolt through my breast, I get that. So yes, they do leak. What do I do when they leak? I use breast pads. They're just absorbing pads that you can get from your like Target, Walmart, Amazon. Does milk really dry up? From what I've heard, yes, it does. I haven't necessarily had that issue. Like I said, I'm kind of like an overproducer. My flow has kind of been much of the same. Depending on how my child feeds, like, you know, maybe 3 days she wasn't really on me that much, like she was kind of feeding weird, it'll kind of adjust to that, but then she'll pick it back up and then it'll get back to what it was. So I haven't had any problem with milk drying up, but I've heard that it does. And when that happens, hopefully I'll be ready for it to dry up. I hope that it doesn't dry up before I'm ready, because that might make me sad. How do you know when your baby is hungry? So most times my baby will make smacking noises, go, or she'll eat on her hands a lot. She's at the stage where everything goes in her mouth, but when she's eating on her hands, like, that means she's really hungry. Or when she's close to me or close to somebody, someone's holding her, she will turn her head to their breast or to my breast, and as they call it, the rooting reflex is when they're turning to be ready to latch on to the breast. So yes, that's how I kind of know that she's hungry. And then I kind of go with the time. So usually she'll feed every like 2.5 hours. If it's nighttime, she might push it to 4 or 5 hours. How often should you be feeding your baby? So I kind of answered that, 2 to 2.5 hours. Like I said, nighttime, she might go a little bit longer. And if she does go longer, she's waking up and she's like, where is it? Right now, I need it now. What are some things you do or use to increase your supply? So I've only used lactation cookies one time. I made a batch and I was kind of eating on those off and on, But like I said, I'm kind of like an overproducer, so my milk supply has always been good. My milk stash is good, so I haven't had to really do much of that. I also drank this tea from Crystal Alkaline Doula. I found her on Facebook. She's very well known. She's from Louisiana. She makes herbal teas and things like that. And she had this milk supply tea, and I used that, but I only used it once. And if you're not continuing something, it doesn't necessarily do anything. So I will say that the lactation cookies did some justice, and I'll put that on the screen so you guys see which ones I actually got. What is the worst part about breastfeeding, and how do you get through it? So this is a very, very, very interesting question. I haven't heard anybody really talk about this, but breastfeeding can be very emotional. I don't know what the actual name for this is called, but sometimes the letdown sensation or reflex triggers something in my mind that makes me feel sick to my stomach. I get very, very nauseous. And that also triggers an emotional, I'm gonna call it emotional situation where I feel like I want to cry. I feel upset, mad, sad, angry. And there have been times where I wanted to stop breastfeeding. I think it makes me feel kind of like used. This is weird. This is me being very vulnerable with you guys, but yes, breastfeeding can be very emotional, and it's not always fun. Like I said, I feel used. I feel like my baby's taking over my body, like my body is not mine. I feel like it just caused an emotional roller coaster, all in the span of like 2 minutes. Like this literally happens all within 2 minutes. I can feel nauseous, and then the resentment and the anger and the sadness all kicks in, and then maybe like 2 minutes later, I'm perfectly fine. So that's probably the worst part about breastfeeding for me. I don't like feeling nauseous. When I say I literally feel like I can throw up, and that lasts for maybe 30 seconds. So the nauseousness lasts for like 30 seconds, and then here comes the emotional part. Yeah, so I think that's the worst part. And a lot of people, they don't talk about that. How can I avoid sore nipples? So they have nipple buttercream. I think it's called Mama Earth. But I actually don't use it that often. I think my nipples have gotten used to her being on them. They did not crack. I've heard people say that their nipples crack. I've heard that people say that their nipples are dry, they burn. That was happening at the beginning, but I didn't stick to the nipple butter like I should have. But I ended up getting used to the feeling, and my nipples have been great since. It's like my nipples did shed like its initial like layer of skin when my baby first started breastfeeding, but it didn't last long enough for me to be doing anything about it. Do you feel like it's a hassle to pump and dump when it comes to alcohol? So guys, I don't drink that much. I recently started like indulging in wine, but what I do, really, you don't have to pump and dump. So I've taken many breastfeeding classes. I took many breastfeeding classes before I even had my child. My doula had a few breastfeeding classes, and then I took a childbirthing class that had breastfeeding embedded in it. So You don't really have to pump and dump, guys. If you get to the point where you're drinking alcohol and you feel yourself tipsy, you feel like, oh, if I feed my baby gonna feel drunk, then you pump, but you use the milk for something else. You can use it for breast milk soap. You can use it to make lotion. You can use it to put it in the bathtub with your baby. Like, there's so many things you can use to use the milk for, that you don't necessarily have to pump and dump. But I haven't gotten drunk to the point where I felt like it was going to affect my baby. Have I indulged in wine? Yes. Was I drunk? No. So I didn't worry about pumping it. I think the first time I drank something, I did pump it, but it honestly wasn't necessary because I didn't feel anything. Like, it was just, I just drank the wine just because, like, it didn't affect my baby. And then I smelled it and it was nothing. It didn't smell like alcohol, anything like that. So I was fine. You assess yourself and you make that decision. But we don't waste milk around here. We use it for something, okay? Can you run out of milk, i.e. have to pump or feed more? I don't want to say run out of milk, dry up, or maybe your baby is not latching as much. Your milk might change. But I wouldn't say run out of milk, but dry up. I guess running out and dry up might be the same thing, but I haven't had that issue, but I'm sure people have. How can you describe feeding on demand? Feeding on demand is like you just feeding whenever your child deems to be hungry. That starts from when you give birth. You kind of feed whenever, like, and your baby will start that rooting reflex where they turn their head and try to latch on, or just like that. So that's basically feeding on demand. And you'll find your child's patterns, or find the way they show that they're hungry, and you'll know from then. So that's feeding on demand. Whenever they're hungry, you're feeding. You're not, oh, just wait. No. Whenever they show signs of hunger, you're feeding. What motivates you to get up and pump at night besides being engorged, knowing you're tired? There is no motivation. There is no motivation. Like I said, I don't have a pump schedule. So if I'm not engorged, I'm going to stay asleep. There's been times where I've been engorged and I'm just so tired that I won't wake up, and then I'll leak on my bed and I'll wake up in a puddle of milk. So yeah, there's no motivation. That's really sad, but if anybody knows me, Raven loves her sleep. So there's no motivation, unfortunately. If I'm tired, I will, and I'm engorged to the point where I'm like, oh my gosh, my boobs are going to, they feel like they're rock hard. They're going to fall off my chest. I will get up and I'll just pump and I'll have my eyes closed. And that's just that. But yeah. Do you feel eating cookies or drinking teas really help with supply, or is it a mental thing? No, I think they really can't help with supply. It depends, but consistency is key with anything that you do. So if you're going to drink the teas, be consistent. If you're going to eat the cookies, be consistent. Follow what the packaging says. I know that when you're on the cookies, I know it told me don't go past a certain amount of days, I think, or once you see the increase, like, stop, because I think you can, like, do too much. So, follow whatever it says until you see a difference. At what point do you think is a good time to stop breastfeeding? How long will you breastfeed? Well, they say that 6 months is a good time to stop if you feel led to. I know that a goal for mine is to go 16 months, and that's only because my mom did the same for me. But if I make it to a year, I would be excited. But I only have to necessarily, don't have to, but a good time to stop breastfeeding is 6 months. My baby's 5 months. I'm pretty sure we're going to pass 6 months. There are times where I want to quit, but I know the benefits of it. So I'm going to at least make it to a year. But it would be great to make it 6 months. How do you remain healthy while breastfeeding? There are some foods that are not recommended to eat due to increasing gassiness in babies. So, what are your substitutes or suggestions for clean eating while nursing? Remaining healthy has not been the easiest task for me. Breastfeeding really has you hungry 24/7. Also, it makes you have the worst sweet tooth, like the worst sweet tooth. So, on top of wanting to eat everything, and have a sweet tooth, sometimes it is difficult to remain healthy because you're hungry and then you want to eat cookies and milk and cookies and cake and ice cream and fruit snacks, and sometimes that's very hard. But what I've started to do, like I've been eating a lot of salmon. We do have an air fryer, which is a little bit healthier to use than to eat fried food. I've been trying to cook a little more, eat more like salad, try to incorporate more vegetables, but make sure that I'm getting my protein in. With the gassiness, what I've realized is that I can't name off something that made Mexican food. Mexican food made my child really, really gassy. And I ate burrito tacos. And what happened was, the first day I ate burrito tacos, it wasn't too bad. But then I ate burrito tacos 3 times in 1 week. And it just took her stomach on overload. So I realized, okay, maybe I overdid it a little bit. It's like, I know when I first started breastfeeding, I want to say broccoli made her gassy and maybe asparagus. And I ate it and I realized what was happening. So I didn't eat broccoli and I didn't eat asparagus. But then later on, as her stomach progressed and her digestion got better, and she got a little bit older, I introduced broccoli again, and she doesn't react as bad as she did when she was first born. So I definitely think their stomachs change as time goes on. So maybe something that you were eating in the beginning didn't do so well with their stomach. Maybe you can introduce it again later, like as the months roll on, you can eat it again and see how it does. So I definitely say, like, I just put some time in between to try it, because what you do is, like, even when you start feeding them food, okay, their stomachs take a second to digest it properly, and they might have blowouts, they might have constipation, whatever the case may be. Then you try it again and see if they react a little different that time. So, just time, progressions, substitutions, and suggestions. Like, just cook more. Because I was a person who ate out a lot. And still sometimes I do eat out a lot, but I try to make more healthy decisions if I'm eating out. Try to lay off the fast food and stuff like that. Last question. What's one thing you would do differently if you were to do it again? If I was to do it again, I would give my child the pacifier. I wasn't diligent in giving her the pacifier, and I became the pacifier. And on top of latching her on demand, there was times where on demand for feeding turned into just on demand for comfort. And that's what pacifiers are for, to help them find comfort, help them learn how to comfort themselves in a different way. And so that caused me to, at times be even more emotional because I wasn't able to get stuff done. She wanted to use me to go to sleep. She had to be on me 24/7, right? So definitely probably use the pacifier. And granted, every child does not like the pacifier, but I could have tried many different pacifiers, and I think I only tried 2, and I was like, oh, I don't think she wants it. So yeah. And instead I just popped my boob in her mouth and said, here. And then she was quiet, and then she stopped crying and she went to sleep. And so when it mattered and she got older and I was trying to do stuff, it was like me trying to break her from that didn't work too well. One other thing would be introducing the bottle earlier. And I think that I wouldn't have had such a problem now. And I wouldn't be here 5 months down the line just now, you know, getting her to take the bottle, or, you know, she would already be in a routine. So I would definitely, I was recommended from some people to introduce the bottle as I'm getting ready to go back to work. Well, I was off for 3 months. That was like the worst decision ever. And just now talking to my mom, she didn't know that I was giving that advice. Just talking to her now, I should have introduced the bottle at 2 weeks old, and I didn't. And I think that was my mistake. I should have, on top of breastfeeding, been me myself giving her the bottle also, and I didn't. So definitely introducing the bottle earlier, because we could have cut down on some of this back and forth of her not wanting to take the bottle and me feeling stuck and emotional because she's on me 24/7. I can't do anything, and me not being able to go anywhere. Me not having a life, because she does not want me out of her sight because she doesn't want to take a bottle. When I first went back to work, she refused to take a bottle. She would starve herself until I came home, and I was gone like 8 hours a day. So my child not eating for 8 hours was a very stressing and taxing on my mind. So that is the end of this Q&A. Hopefully you guys learned something. Hopefully it was helpful. Yes, this was speaking from my experience. Everybody's experience is different, but hopefully I said some things that help you. Hopefully you guys want to breastfeed. Hopefully you know, your breastfeeding journey is going well. Hopefully some people related to things that I've said. If you guys have any other suggestions for anybody else, or want to comment on your experience, or tell the viewers about your own experience or stories that you have, or give any advice to them, please comment down below. Guys, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if there's any other videos about motherhood that you guys would like me to talk about, please don't hesitate to let me know down below in the comment section. Don't forget to don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Like I said, subscribe, because there will be more content coming about motherhood, about life in general, and you know, we can become friends. So I need more mom friends. So yes, guys, I hope you guys like this video, and I will see you guys later. Bye.